Where is the chat?
Wait, is that? Hey, look at that. Welcome.
That's
I was like, people have some confused faces. Like, there must be something going on. Okay, well then I'm gonna start over. So everybody can hear me, okay?
Yeah. No.
Okay, perfect. Okay, well, I'm gonna start over. Hi y'all. It's nice to see you this morning. This is our first publication check-in, and I know we've done a couple different kinds of check-ins over the last, I guess, year or two, and the purpose of these is to create a space to kind of step back and look at the whole publishing environment that you're kind of existing inside. And if you're anything like me, it ebbs and flows. Like there's times where like my creative sort of output is very steady and I feel that rhythm there, but then I feel like, well, how are my readers doing? I feel like I'm kind of lost there. I feel like I'm in the dark there. And the point of these publication check-ins is for you to have a place to touch in with just like the light structure that I've shared with my readers, with y'all, around like a system that I think flexes well when you're trying to publish on Substack. And so the first part of these sort of get-togethers will be kind of going through the basics of what are these systems that tend to work well around intuitive, voice-led, anti-formula publishers on Substack. What are some of those basics, just as like a refresher? And then to really open up this space for y'all to ask questions or share what you're experiencing inside any of those areas. So I think for a while we talked just about data once, and it's like data sometimes has no relevance to what we're creating. It's just like it's the thing collecting in the background while I'm nurturing my publication and my readers. And so I just want to make sure that this is a place where y'all know it's okay if you don't have a question about your readership, you're just really stuck in like your creative side. That's really natural. It's really normal. But this is just a place for y'all to think in a big way around like what's happening, and then we can zoom down into the specifics of what you're going through. So I encourage lots of questions. Bring where you're stuck. Like that's the whole point of these for me, is that like I get stuck, and I've been doing this for a long time. I've built systems over and over again that people work inside, and even I still get stuck inside my system. And so I think there's something to be said about just normalizing that we get stuck because we're trying to create something from nothing. I don't know how familiar you all are with like even how software is built, but I was deeply entrenched in the software world. But like software is literally trying to create something that's never existed before, and I think that writers and storytellers do that too, and especially inside publishing systems. It's important to realize that you're creating something that's never existed before, because it's your voice meeting readers and trying to move them to action and create something that grows. So with all that said, I'm going to run through just some of the elements of what I think helps create structure inside publications. And you'll hear me qualify this a handful of times, that the structure is actually just a place for you to examine yourself. There are people who, when I say pick a monthly theme, if your first reaction is, I hate monthly themes, we want to dive into that. Like that's actually a message that I respect from inside your creative like evolution. Some people don't do well with that kind of structure, but a lot do. And so I want to create a place where if you do have a reaction to something I suggest, that reaction is part of the conversation. Because I think I know I learn a ton when I hear people say that does not work for me. That would create these barriers for me. I want to understand that more. That helps me understand where y'all are, and helps me kind of just see the variety that we have inside our community. So there's a couple elements that I think are helpful when you're trying to create just some structure around how you publish. So the first thing, like I said, think of your publication in month blocks, so 30-day blocks. And one reason I like to do this is because your readers are also thinking in 30-day blocks. They're deciding whether or not they review or they renew their, sorry, someone's trying to get in, renew their subscription every month. And so I like to think in themes, and I invite people to organize around a monthly theme and then say, like, what can I give inside this theme that really blows people away and gives them a little bit of a container without being formulaic. So that's the first thing, is see what happens if you try to work inside a monthly theme. The second element of like a good publishing structure is to remember that format follows function. So we're not writing for an algorithm here, and especially on Substack, it's one of the really nice things about publishing here is that they do design their platform differently from other social media spaces. Like, they want to create a different kind of online culture. And so you can adapt publishing best practices that will actually serve your readers and not ding you on the algorithm. Like, they actually want you thinking about the format that best meets your readers. So that means that, like, when you're thinking through what you're going to publish, it's not, ooh, Substack likes long form. It's actually Substack likes what your readers like. And so giving yourself permission to play inside your formats is really important. Element 3 of just kind of what I think helps us orient to what it means to publish is to think of a 30-day flow map. So starting at the top of the month and just kind of going through and thinking, how does this land inside their life rather than like random inbox pings? I think this is one of the biggest shifts that people who come from Instagram encounter, is that when you publish out to your readers, they actually get it. They actually see what you're sending them, and you create a cadence and a relationship of an exchange of information with them that actually influences how they relate to you. And so thinking through how you publish and how you publish intentionally, it actually does make a difference. I've been playing on Instagram more in the last couple of months, and I realized that, like, these creators, I was off Instagram for several years. I'm like, oh, I'm remembering how chaotic it was to just post. That's not how you run a publication. We think very intentionally, because we actually do land in their inbox at the time we say we want to land. And so giving ourselves this 30-day sort of container of, like, what am I giving them month over month, can be really helpful to create more of an elegant publishing experience for our readers. Element 4, I think it's really important if you've worked at all inside any kind of publishing environment to, like, rethink the purpose of a calendar. I've literally made calendars. I can do them in my sleep at this point. The calendar is not your boss. You're the boss of your calendar. And so I'd like to encourage folks that, like, one of the things that you do is you change your relationship of, like, who answers to who. Like, your calendar answers to your creative intuition, not the other way around. And your calendar is just a place for you to see what's happening inside this publication. And then, like, element 5 of, like, really good publishing systems is that you have a creative safety net. One of the things that I think happens a lot for the publishers I work with is they publish month over month. They're very, very steady, and then they eventually hit a wall. And if they don't have some sort of really robust, I mean, I think in the newsroom we call it, our evergreen library, but you need some form of an evergreen library that still nurtures your readers when you are tanked, when you don't have anything left, when your inspiration drops. I have those times myself where I just know, like, the last half of March, it's not my time to be brilliant, y'all. Like, it's just not. I've got too many anniversaries that collide there, and I'm overtaken, and I make intentional space for that creative safety net. So my readers aren't like, where'd you go? But I know I've created resources for them that help sustain our relationship when I creatively maybe won't have as many resources available to me. And so so those are kind of like the working pieces that we think through, is, like, think about how we're landing in their inbox, how we shape it. And then the magic is what happens when you step inside it, right? Like, what happens when you try this? What happens when you say, like, I'm going to be intentional about this? Magic, magic, mayhem, confusion, questions. That's the point of today, is is to hear from y'all and to help you kind of think through your publication and see if there are tools maybe that are in the archive I can pull for everyone, because honestly, your questions help people find their way into a resource that they need. And so, so it's just a quick overview. And I think it's really important to just pause right here. And if some of y'all are new, some of y'all have been here a while, but like, I don't believe in formulas, but I do like frameworks that hold what I'm doing so I can learn what I want to create myself. And so that's where I'm creatively drawn, is to hear if you're like, none of that sounds like it would help me. Well, let's talk about why, because there's a million ways to publish on Substack that are authentic to you, your creative storytelling, and your readership. So with that's kind of like laid out, I'm curious to hear how things have been going inside your publication. If anybody wants to raise their hand and share, feel free to unmute, and there are people who do like hot seats. I'm not a fan of hot seats because that just feels like high pressure. But I am interested in hearing from y'all about where you are, and see if we can find some wiggle room and get you going for the next month in your publication. So I hope that was helpful. Yeah, Raj.
All right. Hey, yeah, first time here. I'm in a coffee shop in Nashville, so
No problem.
there might be a background noise.
Yeah.
Can you hear me well?
I can hear you.
Okay, so yeah, this is amazing. I'm glad to be here. I run a newsletter called The Marinade on Substack. Been doing it for about a couple of years, and recently did a scan with you, Amanda, and I think
Nice to
that's
see your face. Yes.
Yeah, that's been really helpful to kind of figure out. I haven't gone through all the reports yet, but it came at a point where I'm also trying to I took a 6-7 month break, so it's almost like I'm restarting.
Sure.
Because everybody forgotten what I do, but that momentum is gone. So I'm trying to figure out how to do it. You said a few things, and I made a few questions, notes on some of the questions I had. You said Substack is different from the other platforms. How are they trying to be different? That's one question I had before we get into how it's doing for me.
Yeah, so I have a whole piece I can link to that you can deep dive on, but essentially the head of data just came out and said that, so this, I don't know if you were on this summer, there was a big shift in the recommendations engine. So they've always had a recommendations engine that helps like organically help readers find the next publication they were looking for. But what I understand they encountered was there was a lot of email bloat that basically created these artificially large email lists, but they weren't primed readers. They weren't people that were really looking for you. And so when they shifted this recommendation engine, they've actually talked about it. This is something that Substack has, obviously they can't tell you what their algorithm is, right? They're not going to tell us exactly what it is, but they published a long piece about how they shifted their recommendations engine to anticipate reader curiosity and the reader journey that someone goes on when they are interested in learning about a topic. And so they specifically made changes to the recommendation engine to try to mimic how your ideal reader wants to learn more about what you write about when they find you. So with this said, they're trying to make the reader profile less about, and I think I used this example in the post. You clicked sourdough bread recipe once, now everything sourdough in your life. They're trying to understand the steps that readers take so that it's more static, and then they match that static curiosity with, not static, the flexible curiosity that a reader would have with the flexibility inside your publication. Does that make sense?